Independent review of the Reserve Bank of Australia. I want to thank the review panel, Gordon de Brouwer, Professor Renee Fry-McKibben and Professor Carolyn Wilkins for this absolutely first-class piece of work. And what they're thinking and all of their work over some months means is a roadmap, a plan for the future of the Reserve Bank of Australia, which I am really proud to be releasing today. I wanted to also acknowledge more than 1,500 people who participated in the consultation process through interviews and submissions and taking part in surveys as well. Now, this review, its recommendations and our response is all about ensuring that the Reserve Bank is as strong and as effective as it can be now and into the future as well. This is about learning from the past to strengthen the Reserve Bank for the future. This is about bolstering the independence of the Reserve Bank, not diminishing its independence. And my goal here throughout is a world-class central bank which is more effective, more transparent and more independent, calling on more expertise to make its important decisions. Now, we want to make sure that Australia's monetary policy framework delivers the right decisions and makes the right calls for the Australian economy and for the Australian people. That's what has been motivating this report, the work of the review panel and the thinking of the Albanese government for some months. Now, the government agrees in principle with all 51 of the recommendations made in this report that I'm releasing today. The 51 recommendations are organised under 14 headings and grouped into 5 areas in particular. Ensuring we have a clear and robust monetary policy framework, effective monetary policy decision-making and accountability, an open and dynamic Reserve Bank that facilitates constructive internal debate, more robust governance arrangements, and steps to ensure the RBA leaders drive institutional and cultural change as well. Now, we will now work with the Reserve Bank, other regulators and stakeholders and the Parliament to implement these 51 recommendations in a collaborative and constructive way. We want to ensure that we have the best institutions and policy frameworks in place because this is more important than ever given the complex and more uncertain economic environment that we confront. Now, the Reserve Bank, as the review concludes, is a high-quality institution. It has highly skilled and dedicated staff which have made and do make a significant contribution to Australia's economic performance over many decades. Now, the review aims to strengthen the Reserve Bank even further so that it's well equipped to deliver decisions and make decisions in what has become an increasingly complex and challenging environment. Now, some of the review recommendations fall to the Reserve Bank to implement, given it operates monetary policy independently. And I welcome the Reserve Bank's statement today outlining their commitment to develop a plan to implement these recommendations in an effective way. Other recommendations will require legislative change. Others will require work with the Council of Financial Regulators. And some will fall to the agreement of a new statement on the conduct of monetary policy between the Reserve Bank and the government via me as Treasurer. I intend to work closely with the opposition and the crossbench to ensure we build the right institutions and frameworks to support a better future and a better central bank as part of that. Now, subject to those consultations and that support from the opposition in particular, we intend to introduce legislation to reinforce the independence of the Reserve Bank by removing the government's right to veto its decisions. We intend to introduce legislation to strengthen the RBA's mandate and clarify that our monetary policy framework has dual objectives of price stability and full employment. And we also will seek to establish separate monetary policy and governance boards to strengthen expertise, decision-making and bring us more into line with world's best practice. We will also update the statement on the conduct of monetary policy. This statement is an agreement between myself and the RBA When I came into this role less than 12 months ago, I put off releasing a new statement so that we could reflect the outcomes of this review in the new statement, which hasn't been updated since 2016. And the updated statement will reaffirm our commitment to the independence of the Reserve Bank and our support for the inflation targeting framework. It'll also set out our shared understandings for strengthening decision-making, accountability and transparency in monetary policy decisions in line with the recommendations of this review that I'm releasing. It is my hope that we can work towards having an agreed statement in place by the end of the year, and that the recommendations of the review can be in place, ready to implement and ready to go by the middle of 2024. Now, as I said before, there are some areas that fall to the RBA to implement themselves, and I do again want to acknowledge the government's statement today that he will work with his colleagues to develop a plan to implement those changes. Now, the review also made a number of welcome suggestions to make appointments of external members to RBA boards more open and transparent, and we support these recommendations as well. In fact, we have already taken steps in this direction in anticipation by running an expression of interest process for the first time to help inform the latest round of board appointments. And today I'm really pleased and really proud to announce that the government has appointed Dr Ian Ross and Ms Alana Rubin as part-time members of the Reserve Bank Board. Dr Ross will bring a deep understanding of labour markets and economics, having led the Fair Work Commission and as a private lawyer and as an advocate for workers as well. Alana Rubin has over 20 years of corporate board experience across diverse sectors of our economy and extensive experience in financial services, infrastructure, property, tourism and manufacturing as well. Ian Ross and Alana Rubin are highly capable people, and I have absolutely no doubt that they will make important and excellent contributions to the Reserve Bank Board going forward. I want to thank Wendy Crate and Mark Barnaba for the contribution that they have made to the board over a number of years now during what was an extremely difficult period for the economy and for the Reserve Bank as well. Mr Barnaba will continue to serve on the board until his term ends, and I thank him for that as well. Wendy and Mark have been absolutely first-class members of the Reserve Bank Board, and I thank them for their contribution. Wendy finishes up at the next meeting, Mark in a couple of months' time, and Ian and Alana will be very worthy, very important replacements for Wendy and for Mark. I wanted to finish on this set of points about my gratitude for the way that the Reserve Bank and particularly Governor Lowe, but also the opposition and particularly the Shadow Treasurer have engaged with this process over recent months. We have said from the beginning that we want to see changes to the Reserve Bank made in a bipartisan way if we can. These are not ideological changes. These are considered proposals and recommendations that we have worked through in a really methodical way to try and get to the outcome that we have reached today, that we will support in principle all 51 recommendations. It's no small thing for the Reserve Bank Governor to engage in a process like this. It can be uncomfortable. And so I really did want to acknowledge and thank Phil Lowe for the way that he's engaged with me and the way that he has engaged with the review over some time. And similarly, I did want to acknowledge Angus Taylor. Angus and I have our differences across a range of policy areas, but he has engaged, I believe, in this process in a considered way and in a cooperative way. I have arranged multiple briefings from the review panel over a period of some months. I provided the final report to him immediately after I briefed my Cabinet colleagues on the contents of the report, and I have engaged with him, including this week, on the contents of the report, and I appreciate the way that he has engaged with it. I want to work with the Parliament, including the opposition, the stakeholders and regulators, the Reserve Bank and its board, and the broader Australian community to bed down these recommendations, because this is all about ensuring we have the right economic institutions and the right frameworks in place to support a better future for all Australians.